Here we go with part 5 Understanding the Matrix. All right, I hope that went through all right. All right, it's time for part 5 of Understanding the Matrix. This is the part where it gets interesting because we're going to talk a little bit about space and time. Why space and time? Because many of the great scientists already came to the conclusion that space and time are things that are close together and they can't live without each other. So it's kind of a duo, and more importantly, they are both very relative, because time is something that exists here on Earth, and many other galactic faring people or beings will say that there's no such thing as time. And space is something you create. This is why it's the Matrix, like we spoke about in earlier episodes, when I said, all right, the Matrix is a construct of what we've all accepted to be true. Well, space is one of these things. So I'm very convinced that there will be a time when we come to our full potential, when we start using the maximum of our brain, that we do not need physical travel anymore, because space is something that will be a relative thing. And then time stops to exist in the way we think about it now, because moving through space takes time. But if you look at space in a very different way, then you experience time in a very different way. Now, like I said in episode 1, hints, there is a very important movie that hints about this, that is Interstellar. I would advise you to go see that after this episode, and look at it with fresh eyes, because it tells a story about how space and time are very much different than we think, than we experience. But we experience it that way because we've chosen it that way. In this reality where we live, it is very comfortable to be in the state, to see time as linear. You move from point A to point B, and everything just goes along that timeline, and you move through space within that timeline. But like I said, with the multiple world theory, which I talked about in episode 1, which was very nicely explained in the series Fringe, the deja vu thing kind of lets you know that time is very relative, because time and space, they seem to exist in different frequencies. Now, everybody these days is talking about ascension, and we're going to be picked up by aliens, and we're going to get off of this planet, and we are going to be enlightened. Well, I hate to say it, but the beings that are enlightened, they are around us. They just live in a different reality because they have chosen to see a different reality and to exist in a different reality. In that respect, there are probably versions of you and of me and of everybody, except for non-playing characters, which I also explained in the episode of, I think it was reincarnation. Anyway, We have versions of ourselves that operate in these frequencies. And that is what creates the deja vu. So you see something familiar, but it's actually your otherworldly counterpart that has experienced a similar thing. That's why it's always a little bit off, because things in this reality are not going to be the same as in the reality where you remember the deja vu moment from. Now, I know this is very hard to grasp, but if you look at time, then everything is happening right now, all of it. And you look at space, everything is happening right now, right here. So do not underestimate your power to influence many other frequencies by your actions here. A previously mentioned phenomenon is karma. And I think this has a lot to do with this, because when you say something or you do something or you have a certain way of being, then you will affect other frequencies. It doesn't mean that you mess them up or anything. It's just that it echoes back to you. It reflects to you. And you know that when you are mean to someone, you can expect to be treated unfairly as well. Let me see if I can get the autofocus to work here. Nope, switch back to the first camera. All right, so that reflection may be something that is not even of this world, not even of this realm. It may be you that's reacting to it in a different reality. So the Matrix holds different games. Just look at it like an old cartridge computer, like the Atari 2600 or the Nintendo Entertainment System or the Sega Mega Drive. You used to have these cartridges. They were like these plastic things with a circuit board sticking out. And then you had this game, and it says 32 in 1 or 144 in 1, and you would get the cartridge in, and then you get a menu. And if you had 144 games, you have to flip through all of these games and select one. Now, all these games are in the same cartridge. So, in fact, they're in the same realm. But if you're playing one, you can't play the other. However, this is the beauty of the Matrix. We do have contact with these other realms, with these other frequencies, and we work closely together. And sometimes when you're tired, it just means that you are working in a different frequency, and it's taking all it can take out of you, because it needs all the energies from different frequencies to operate in that one. So the Matrix has just become interesting, because shifting to a higher frequency, what everybody's after right now, it's here, it's now, and it's not something you go to. You don't need to be rescued by aliens. You don't need to flutter into some frequency. You don't need to push yourself into all this wavy new age crap. You just need to be a good person. And you need to be a good person to yourself. That's rule number one. Because everybody thinks that they have to do these great things to be able to ascend to the next level, and I'm going to be a 5D creature. We are all 5D creatures. We're 9D creatures. We're 12D creatures. We've all been there. And our other selves are still doing it. And that's why we have a craving for it, because it's all happening simultaneously. And it's all happening in this place, whatever this place is, because space is just so relative. Other beings would say, oh, we don't need to travel. We can see what you're saying. We understand that you, in that particular frequency, you need that, because this is a very hard life here. There are many possibilities, and we as humans don't use any of them. So incarnating into this reality is top of the line game. It's the hardest game you've ever played. And that's why there's people lining up to get into this reality. So overpopulation, I don't think so. Overpopulation can be swiped off the table just by the non-playing characters alone. And then there's the thing that parts of Source want to be projected in this reality because there's so much to learn. And the learning you do for you. And everybody thinks you need to do these great things. No. You have to work on you. And it can be this little tiny thing that you change. And when it's changed, and when it's changed for the better, and when things really start to roll, then everybody that taps into that same energy, that taps into that source, that has connection with that source, not the non-playing characters, but every vibrant soul around you will have access to that reality, to that information. Like the experiment with the mice and the dogs, if you remember. So that's what's important. So now our game is complete. We have a matrix. It is a game. We, from the inside, we control it. We do that by the power of our mind. We choose to be here. We know it's going to be difficult. We're going to have to make some real efforts to do some difficult levels. Then we get assigned a family. We get assigned a situation where we need to be. And this is very hard for people, because this means that some people will be in very hard circumstances. And people ask me sometimes, why? Why do these people have to suffer so much? Well, see, I think the best example that I can give you is a recent conversation I had with someone. And this person asked me, how do you feel about abortion? And the question was very much more specific than that, because they wanted to know if I subscribe to the idea that a soul is connected to the embryo when it is still in the womb, or does the soul come into the body with birth? Or where is that moment when it stops being a lump of cells and some DNA matter? When does the soul and the feeling come into the child? When does the embryo stop being an embryo, and when is it a kid? Well, my personal feelings are that the energy is connected to the mother and even to the father, though less intense, even before there is an embryo. So you've decided you want to come here, and then you get assigned a situation. And that situation is a family trying to get pregnant. So that's where so your soul, your feelings are already in it before there is even is an embryo. So that's how I feel about that. But do I feel that abortions should be illegal? Well, that's a very hard question, because me as a human on this particular frequency, I would say that creates a lot of suffering. But I'm not the one to decide whether this suffering is just or not. And why would it be just? Why would suffering of a child be just? Well, if you subscribe to the idea of reincarnation and that we're all here to learn, and that sometimes you've been a big doofus in a couple of lifetimes and you've been messing people up, maybe killing, raping, whatever you can think of, stealing, then you might want to resolve some karma swiftly. And what better way to do this to be than to be painfully removed from somebody's womb, to be deconstructed as a, and this sounds horrible. I know it. I know this sounds horrible, but I'm not the one to judge about this. So I may feel that it's murder, but it doesn't matter, because these people involved in this thing are choosing to do so. This is what we call a karma contract, and that is very hard to accept. And I'm never going to say that's easy, and I'm never going to say it's not murder. I'm not going to say it is murder. It's just there are situations in which there could be a karma contract, and I'm not the one to judge about that. I'm not the one to judge about that. So these are some hard lessons that we can learn in this realm. So we play the game, we reincarnate, and then we all decide that things are the way they are. And slowly but surely, we are all moving towards the moment where we're all saying, this has been fine up to now, that things are the way they are, but we would like it to change because there are some things wrong about this. And, once again, I can say it's wrong. Somebody else can say it's no problem. I'm not the one to judge about it. But when a large number of people start to agree on the fact that it's not okay and they want to change things, then their mindset will come to this conclusion, and they'll come to a turning point where they say, we want things different. So now that we want things different, we're going to make them different. And it's not per se that you have to be very active about it, because when you think it needs to be different, you project that on the world. And as we learned, the matrix will comply to whatever you want to see. So if you want to speed up this process, I would say, please follow my next series. That's going to be very much connected to understanding the matrix. And it's all about changing your perspective. That's what it's called. It's going to be a 5-part series again. So if you're ready to change your perspective, please log in and follow this series, because it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, this series so far, Understanding the Matrix. And I'll see you all again for the next 5-part series, Changing Your Perspective. Till next time, bye.